Think about this. A few years ago, Ikhwan, relatively 10, 50, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, some guy, a colonialist, who killed your forefathers, drank their blood almost, and burnt their books, went on a map, and he drew some lines on a map, and you define yourself by those lines.
I think we Muslims are in a collective state of psychosis because we're proud to belong to a country that was a map drawn by the non-Muslims 40, 50 years ago. How insane is that?
Brothers and sisters, if you look at Islamic history, the whole concept of nationalism, of qawmiyyah, of breaking up into nation states, this is so recent as to be like yesterday. Literally less than 100 years ago, the Muslim ummah had no notion of what is a nationality, what is a nation state, what is Arab versus Ottoman and Turk versus Pakistani and Indian. These are all modern notions that have been thrust upon us by colonial powers, and this is not a conspiracy theory. Wallahi, this is very open history. Look at T.E. Lawrence of Arabia, look at other figures that came. Their main goal was to spread ideas of nationalism and of qawmiyyah amongst people for whom it was alien. They couldn't imagine and not understand, why are we different? We're one ummah. But they kept on hammering away, until what has happened? We are now, mashallah, tabarakallah, over 65 countries. Every country, kullu hizbin bima ladayhim farihun. Every country is divided, every country is hating the other, every country is going to war with one another.
We cannot be supremacists. We cannot think my nation is better than your nation, my nationality is better than your nationality, my language is better than your language, my skin color is better than your skin color, my village is better than your village. We can't do it. And you know when we are reminded that we can't do that? When we stand together in salat. Why I'm highlighting that? Because I notice it in Muslims. I notice asabiyah in Muslims. I notice Muslims make fun of other nationalities, look down on them, talk bad about them. Talk bad about people that speak a different language. The Arabi makes fun of the non-Arabi. The Bangladeshi makes fun of the Pakistani makes fun of the Indian. The Filipino makes fun of the Malaysian. What's going on here? Don't we make salat?
And this disease still exists among the ummah today. There's racism, there's discrimination. You would rarely find any two neighboring Muslim countries who don't have bickering between them. They don't even have to be neighboring. Pakistan and Bangladesh are not neighboring. So it's all over the Muslim world. Look at the Middle East. Every country has problems with every country that is adjacent to it, that's bordering it. And then within the country you have different tribes. And within the tribes, different clans. That's all asabiyya of jahiliyyah. Rasulullah says that belongs to the time of ignorance. Pre-Islamic ignorance. So we need to stay away from it. Everybody is equal, and Allah Azza wa Jal differentiates between you in your status according to your taqwa. أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. The closest to Allah Azza wa Jal among you are the ones who have taqwa.
He said, anyone from amongst me, anyone, any human being who calls on asabiyah, who calls on nationalism, who calls for it, who fights for it, or who dies for it, he's not from amongst me. Another hadith to talk about the disgust, the view in terms of what Islam thinks of nationalism. When the Prophet says, leave it, stay away from it, abstain from it, it's rotten. And look at the history of the Muslims, that in the last 100 years, we've been humiliated. Why? Because we are nationalists. How do we as an ummah expect this ummah to be victorious while we are quarreling amongst ourselves because someone is black or someone is white?
Your nationalism is not going to save you on the Day of Judgment, no matter how big you think you are. And by the way, just to be very, very frank, the nations you're so proud of are rubbish. Pakistan's a failed state. Bangladesh is killing Muslims at the moment. Where else are you guys from? It's a failed state. Azad Kashmir has no political authority. Kashmir, the other part, is taken over by India. I mean, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? You're nobody. We're no one. Our nationalism has been cursed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So brothers and sisters, let me be very frank here. The one who does not think about the Muslims in Kashmir, the Muslims in Palestine, the Muslims in Syria, the Muslims all over the world, if you have no connection with them and you don't feel their pain and suffering, then wallahi brothers and sisters, to be very frank, this is a sign of a lack of iman from our part.
There's a report that's been put out. This report has been developed in America. It is what most of the governments in the world today are using as a ruler and a parameter to judge Muslims, to evaluate Muslims, to diagnose Muslims. And let me read to you what they have said concerning us. The non-Muslims who consider themselves as authorities and experts on Islam and Muslims have observed the following. Listen to this, please. The Muslims in the world are divided into the following basic socio-political groups: Asians, Arabs, Africans, those of the Far East, those of the Near East, those of European, American, and Australian backgrounds, although those are of the minority, those of Slavic and Russian backgrounds, although they are also a negligible population, and those of South America. This is what they said. Look how they divide us. Our objective is to polarize these ethnic groups. That means to keep these ethnic groups from uniting together and exploit their cultural differences. In this way, we can maximize our global agenda and we can minimize any global threat from them. Subhanallah. Look how clear they are. Look how bold they are. Look how blatant they are. And look how accurate they are.
Their nationalism has only been instilled after somebody came along and on a map of Africa drew a line and said, you're Libya and you're Algeria and you're so-and-so. If they are able to return to, in the modern context, of course, to something that allows that sort of unity, it would give them a great deal of strength. And I think that's where the worry is in terms of the West, is that we will have another powerhouse here established at our southern doorstep that we don't want. So I think the call for the establishment of a caliphate, or perhaps not even using that word, but a united Muslim bloc, is something that most people would want. The reason for unity would probably be economics, of course, defense, of course, and, you know, a harking back to a history where you could travel from one point to the other unhindered because you're a citizen of this land. And that this land isn't divided based upon colonial principles.
So you get a Muslim passport.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know about that. But I mean,
just the same way as you have in Europe. You have the ability to travel within Europe and very, very freely. Part of your own nation.
And you have a right to work in any country.
Right.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those who strive to bring about unity in the ummah. May Allah azza wa jal cause us to those who leave the bickering of the ethnicities, of the nationalities, of the minor differences between the various factions of the ummah. What unites us is far more than what disunites us. What we have in common is far more than what we don't have in common. May Allah azza wa jal make us all those who love one another for Allah's sake. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa sallallahu wa sallam wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.